Friends, it is finally time. This is the third and final door to Mycorrhiza. Now, in each of the prior two doors, we've collected secret keys, and I'll admit I have no idea what those keys do, if they unlock something after door 3. I have no idea. But as far as the main story goes, this is likely the final chapter. I've really enjoyed this series so far, and it seems like you guys have too. It's bittersweet that it's coming to an end so soon, but I really hope we can find other games that are similar to this idea. I love a good, scary visual novel, and this so far has just knocked it out of the park with every chapter. Now, I do have a question for you guys before we start. I was wondering, for the people that read a lot of books out there, what is the scariest book you've ever read? I'm okay with it being a novel, a visual novel, you know, it's pretty open to interpretation, but I've wanted to kind of pick up like nightly reading if possible. I heard it's a great way to get you ready to go to bed, but I want to read something really scary. So if you guys have any suggestions about legitimately terrifying books, please let me know. Let's experience what is likely the final chapter of Mycorrhiza together. And here we go, door number 3, which is a bunch of hands outstretched to grab at something. Likely us, to be honest. Trapped is the title of chapter 3. I'm excited. Feels like we've been playing this for so long, but it's only the third video, really. And there was our last chapter. The most hilarious one. I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. I think all the chapters start out in the same way. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. There were people laughing and distorted faces, and I couldn't remember, but it must have been terrifying. The pulsing pain in my head slowly subsided. I took deep breaths and kept mumbling to myself that it had all been a dream, nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But what I saw when I opened the bedroom door was not what I had expected. Are we in a hotel? Or an apartment complex? Instead of the living room I had entered the bedroom through, I found myself in the middle of a long hallway. A row of doors interspersed with handrails covered each wall. I could hear people chatting in the distance. Where was I, and how did I get here? That's a good point. It's like we were transported to another location? There's something off about this hotel, though. This place looked like a hotel at first glance. A plate with the room number was hanging next to all the doors. Mine was 215. As I moved toward the end of the hallway, I took a more thorough look at my surroundings. The floor was lined with red carpet featuring an elaborate design. The red and white walls complemented the elegant atmosphere. On the ceiling hung electrical lamps that were similar in design to candles. What is this? Look at this. Some sort of a... Wait a minute. Are they on a cruise ship? As I stepped out of the hallway, I was momentarily blinded by the bright ambiance. A huge chandelier was hanging on the ceiling of the grand hall I stepped into. I seemed to be on the upper floor of this 2-floor structure. The ground floor, apparently a restaurant area, was lined with tables. Multiple people were dining and happily chatting with each other. A huge window across from me showed a big body of water. Was I in a hotel by the beach? The water looked oddly close. Yeah, this is a boat. I need answers. Quickly, I located the stairs and hurried down toward the restaurant. Luckily, one of the waiters was just passing by as I reached the bottom. Excuse me, could you tell me where I am? This is going to be a shock. He answered without hesitation. You're in the restaurant area, sir. If you'd like to order something, you need to... No, I mean this whole hotel. This time, he did hesitate. He's probably wondering how he doesn't know we're on a ship. Well, you're on the... Kajamath cruise ship, if that's what you mean. Is everything in order? So, Kajamath is the name of the town that we kept spawning into in chapters 1 and 2. So I guess this technically is still the town? Cruise ship? How did I get on a cruise ship? Had I been kidnapped? Would my kidnappers let me walk around freely? The waiter had a concerned look on his face. He glanced over at his colleague, who had gestured to him with a stern expression on her face. I could call someone over to help you, or you could find someone at the help desk just at the end of the hallway. At least these people are talking to him. He gestured back up the stairs and pointed at another hallway next to the one I had come out of. Thank you, I'll just ask for more information at the help desk. I didn't want to hold him up any longer. How did he get on a cruise ship? So, I guess the concept of being trapped makes a lot more sense here. The waiter's colleague had by now crossed her arms in front of her chest and was tapping her foot impatiently. The waiter hesitantly nodded and turned away from me. A cruise ship? I didn't remember ever booking a ticket for a cruise. But as I rummaged through my pockets, I did find a keycard with the number 215 on it. Right, the help desk. I should be able to find out more there. I made my way back up the stairs. Look how modern this looks. Gorgeous furniture. It reminds me of like the waiting rooms at modern apartment complexes where they're trying to get people to rent rooms. The room at the end of the second hallway looked like a lounge area. It was filled with comfortable sofas and armchairs. Multiple groups of people were chatting next to each other. I could see children playing near what I assumed to be the help desk. It says, may I help you? I quickly approached the man standing at the desk who perked up from the documents he was browsing. Hi, how can I help you? I'm a bit lost. Well, I don't really remember booking a cruise. Is there a way to get off early? He looked at me with a similarly puzzled expression as the waiter. Could you tell me your room number? Yes, it's 215, but I don't remember booking it. I took out my keycard and showed it to him. The man opened a drawer and started expertly flipping through the folders. Shortly after, he pulled out a document. Is this your name and signature? He turned it so that I could see it. To my surprise, the name and signature written on it were mine. But how? How could I forget signing up for a cruise? As for your second question, we're currently on the last day of our trip. The ship will arrive at Kajamath Port tomorrow at noon. Are you here with anyone? He threw a skeptical look my way. I must have sounded like a weirdo. That's probably the first time he's ever gotten a question like that. No, I'm alone. I'll just sort things out tomorrow then. What would you do in this situation? Like, genuinely. The employee shrugged and put the folder back into the drawer. Don't hesitate to let me know if you need any more help. Interesting. Yeah, like, what would you do in this situation? I turned around, wondering what my next course of action should be when... Ow! Something had hit one of my legs hard. I stumbled but managed to stop my fall by holding onto the help desk. Oh God, are you okay? Lanny, you need to pay more attention. I looked up to see what had hit me. Here are the returning characters. Initially, I had assumed that I had walked into some piece of furniture, but that was not the case. A boy was sitting on the ground in front of me. Someone was standing over him, making sure he was all right. As soon as she had confirmed that he wasn't hurt, she turned to me. I'm very sorry about that. Are you hurt anywhere? Lanny, make sure you apologize. Sorry, I wasn't looking. No, it's all right. I'm okay. I turned to the boy named Lanny. Are you okay? Yeah, it's nothing. His look was fixed to the ground. It seemed like he really did feel bad about bumping into me. The woman had, in the meanwhile, fixed her gaze onto my face. Are you sure you're all right? You look rather pale. No. I'm fine. That didn't seem to convince her. My confusion and frustration about being on this boat had shown on my face. Would you like to sit down with us for a bit? I have some medicine against seasickness. It might help. Now that she was mentioning it, I was feeling a bit woozy. I had been too preoccupied with figuring out what was going on to notice. I still just like... How would you... First of all, when you wake up, would you not feel the fact that you're on a boat? I feel like I would, but... I've never been on a cruise ship before, so maybe it's like so large that you don't feel it moving as much? I don't know. She led me to one of the sofas and motioned me to sit down. My name is Sabrina, by the way. This boy here is Lanny, and the girl over there is Amy. We know these characters. She motioned to a girl sitting at a table nearby who was brooding over a piece of paper. My name's Scott, so are they your family? Sabrina stopped rummaging through her handbag and looked at me with an amused smile on her face. Oh no, they're my neighbor's kids. We're good friends and I paint with their children sometimes. I'm currently looking after them. While Sabrina was still looking for the medicine, Lanny approached his sister and peered over her shoulder. He then grimaced and walked over to our sofa to take a seat next to Sabrina. What's she drawing? Here you go. She handed me a pill from a small bottle. Out of the corner of my eyes, I saw Lanny motion to Amy. I don't get how she can be so into drawing. It's boring. She's been at it for at least half an hour, and it looks terrible. That's awful. Why would... What? Hey, I heard that. Amy shot an angry gaze at Lanny. They're mean to each other in this story. And I don't think Sabrina, like, knew these characters before? I don't know. Good art needs time. Maybe you should work on some art as well. Yeah, maybe it'd help with your hyperactivity. I'm not hyperactive, I'm just healthy. That's what Dad says. I guess so. If I had any ounce of knowledge about music, I could help you relieve your energy that way at least. Though it's also been a while since my art. Sabrina trailed off with a sad look on her face. Don't worry, it's okay. I've been figuring things out on my own. Also, I've been asking Dad and Mom if they can buy me a melodica. I'm pretty sure that I'll get one soon. You two really seem to have a knack for art and music. Your parents must be proud of you. I don't know about Amy, but I'm pretty sure they're proud of me. Lanny's a confident guy. Amy shot another angry glance Lanny's way, but didn't retort. She seemed to be the mature one in their sibling relationship. And here's the other guy. Franklin, I think, right? Frederick? Frederick. Hey, do you have any more of those pills? I jumped slightly. A voice had called out from right behind me. Oh, look at her expression. As I turned around, I saw a grumpy-looking man. Sabrina grabbed her handbag once again. Another one, Frederick? It says on the package that one should be enough. Ugh, apparently not. I can't work while feeling like crap. Why did I agree to go on this trip? Sabrina gave him a skeptical look, but handed him a pill without saying anything. Frederick turned around on the spot and trotted off. Sabrina sighed. Are they artists? Sorry about that. He's usually more pleasant. The seasickness must be getting to him. That, coupled with an upcoming deadline for an article. Never mind. He's a writer. So he's a journalist? No, that's not what I meant. He's a biologist. Oh, never mind. Oh, so he's the same profession in all the... Okay. I got it. You guys are probably yelling at your screens. BigGaming, don't you remember? I got it now, I promise. He's a biologist and he's been working hard on getting something published in that one magazine. If you ask me, his obsession with getting more publications is a bit unhealthy. A fellow scientist, now that I thought about it, I hadn't written anything in a while myself. Way more pressing matters had taken up my time recently. The spores were still... Wait. What? The spores? Is that from one of the other chapters? Are they blending together now? I jolted up. Sabrina looked at me in surprise. What? That slipped a little bit. I wonder where this is going. The spores. I remember that from chapter 1. I think, at least. Or maybe it wasn't spores. Okay. Thank you for the medicine. I feel better now. I should get going, though. I was too anxious to sit still, even though I knew that there was nothing I could do until the ship came into port the next day. Yeah, we're trapped. All right, take care. Feel free to let me know if you need any more medicine. I thanked her again, said goodbye to the siblings, and headed back toward the sleeping quarters. But I stopped just before the hallway that led to my room. My eyes wandered toward the big window. The sun had started to set, but I didn't feel tired at all. Likely because I had woken up just recently. And so I decided that the best way to dispel some of my anxiety was to take in some fresh air. Good idea. I continued on past the hallway and out onto the deck. Being in nature really does help. Sadness, anxiety. I really feel like there's a connection we have. Not like on some, transcendental kind of mindset with nature, but it's almost like through millions of years of creatures existing on this planet, it's like, we're connected in nature to a way, and just being outside and, at least for me, being in nature does help to calm me. At least, who knows? I'm just kind of discussing my inner thoughts with you guys, I guess. But yeah. I continued on past the hallway and out onto the deck. Oh, look at that. I actually really like this picture here. Is this what... I think this was called, like, pointillism? I took an art history class in college. I'm not sure if this is pointillism, where it's like a bunch of little points making up the picture. I'm not sure. A salty breeze hit my face. I could hear the soft splashing of waves against the hull of the ship. This place was way emptier than I had expected. Less than a handful of couples and some families were standing near the edge of the railing. One of those couples had their dog with them. Every now and then, when it heard the call of a seagull, it jerked its head around. Were one of the pairs on this deck perhaps Amy and Lanny's parents? Absent-mindedly, I approached the railing right by the door and looked over. We were very high up. Looking down at the waves hitting the ship hull had an eerily hypnotic effect. Combined with the cool air and the sound of water, it calmed me down. And here is the other recurring character. This is May. Hey, I jerked up. Someone was standing at the railing right next to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you. No worries, it's okay. It looked like she had been standing there for a while. Did I somehow overlook her? You looked a bit confused, so I wanted to ask if you're all right. Oh, well, I guess I'm a bit lost. I had a feeling she'd be no more understanding than the employees, so I decided not to tell her too much. I'm a bit lost too. It might sound weird, but I'm not sure how I ended up here. Wait, that sounded oddly familiar to my situation, but she seemed to misinterpret my surprised look. I know, it sounds odd. It's just like in dreams. Whenever you try to remember how you got to the place you're dreaming about, you can't. So I wasn't the only one. There was someone else here who was experiencing the same thing I was. Knowing this lifted my spirits. Just as I was about to tell her about my situation, she suddenly perked up. Sorry, I should go. I promised to meet someone. What? And with that, she hurried off before I could say anything. I was slightly frustrated by the fact that I hadn't been able to confide in her, but I could seek her out tomorrow, I guess. The sun had meanwhile almost set. A blood-red stripe was visible on the horizon. I set off back toward my room. With nothing better to do, I got into bed and tried to sleep. My night was restless. Half the time I wasn't sure if I was awake or asleep. Weird sounds kept waking me up. By the time the sun had risen, I felt like I'd barely slept at all. Today would be the day we'd arrive at a place called Kajamath. From there, I'd be able to get back home one way or another. I rubbed my eyes as I opened the door that led out into the hallway. But something was wrong. The hallway looked different. Was it shorter? There definitely used to be more doors here. It was as if a new wall and door had appeared where the hallway originally continued to the restaurant area. I approached the new door and tried to turn the doorknob, but it was locked. Slowly, panic set in. Was I trapped in here? Did everyone already leave? There was no way they had left me behind, right? I quickly approached one of the doors in the hallway and knocked. Silence. I tried the next, and then the third. All was silent. My heart rate accelerated. I forced myself to calm down and think this through. Let's think it through. There was no way they would leave a passenger behind. And even if they did, they would notice sooner or later that I was still in here. The most productive thing to do right now would be checking if the other rooms were open. Maybe I could find a way to make people aware of the fact that I was still in here. I considered which door to try first. Okay, I say we just go down the row. Room 1. The room was unfurnished and windowless. A sole light bulb in the middle of the ceiling illuminated it faintly. I could see about 15 people sitting on the dirty ground. What? Most of them seemed to be adults, but there were a couple children cowering next to what I assumed to be their parents. One person from the group, an older man, raised his head as if waking from a dream. The door! It's open! More and more people lifted their heads, and I could feel their stares piercing me. The man was the first to stand up and shuffle toward the door. I stepped aside, but as he tried to cross the threshold, he suddenly stopped. He was frozen in midair, his fingers tightened as if he was exerting great effort. Disappointed, he stepped back. Why are they trapped in here? Even with the door open. It's no use. He sulked back to his spot and slumped to the floor. What the hell is going on? The other people in the room lowered their heads, their hopes dashed in an instant. I wasn't sure what was going on, but it was evident that they were in trouble. I quickly walked up to the older man. Hey, do you know what's going on here? No, we all woke up in this room and are unable to leave. And now it seems like you're stuck in here with us as well. My heart stopped for a second, and panic slowly started to set in. Was I really trapped in here? I hastily walked to the door and stepped right through. The man stared at me with wide eyes. This means that you, instead of the girl, might be able to help us. Right after he uttered those words, some of the people in the room lifted their heads and looked at me. Some with a look of disbelief, and some with hope in their eyes. So there was someone else on the ship who could enter and exit this room freely? What did she look like? He started explaining. I soon realized that this description fit someone I knew. It's May. It sounded just like the girl I had met on the deck yesterday. Yeah, May. So she got into this mess as well. We asked her to help us, but she just laughed and left. To me, it seems like Frederick and Sabrina and Lanny and Amy, it seems like they're very much fixtures of these stories. They're recurring characters, but May seems like us, existing kind of outside these stories, maybe with different motives. And I don't know what those are exactly, but she doesn't just seem like a recurring character. That wasn't quite how I remembered her, but it wasn't like I'd known her for a long time. Was her nice appearance just an act? I shifted my attention back to the man before me. There might be people behind the other doors that we could possibly help. Please let me know if you have anything that you don't need, or if you are in need of something. That way, I can make sure that everyone gets out of here safely. Some people nodded in agreement while the majority stayed stoic. A woman stood up, got something from a shelf, and approached me. We found some medicine in this room. We can't give all of it away, but maybe it will help someone. The label was barely legible. I could make out the letters Funite. I still gladly took the bottle and thanked her as she trotted back. What is that? Please, if you find any food, bring it to us. Alright, I should head out, but I'll let you know if I find anything. With these words, I stepped back through the door. It closed behind me as if a wind gust suddenly blown through the hallway. Room 2. Door creaked open and light spilled into the damp room. A crowd of about 40 people occupied the space. Some were sitting on the floor and some were leaning against the dirty walls. Suddenly, someone near the door darted up and shoved me aside. It was Frederick, who I had only met briefly while I was chatting with Sabrina. He tried to force himself through the door but was stopped midair. An invisible force was pushing him back. Some more people approached the door and tried the same, but to no avail. Damn it! Frederick slammed his fist into the wall. I thought this was my chance. Frustrated, he went back to where he was originally sitting. Since I had been in a room like this before, I knew that I was able to travel back and forth. Hey, a few of the people looked up as I started speaking. I should be able to walk in and out. There are also survivors in the other rooms. I might be able to get you guys some of the things you need if you need anything specific. I don't like his murderous intent. Frederick shot up and walked to me until he was way too close for comfort. We need food. You'll get some for us, right? That sounded more like a threat than a request. Yeah, I can do that if I find some. I stepped back so I didn't have to smell his sour sweat anymore. Do you happen to have anything here that you don't need? Just in case other people trapped on the ship need anything specific? He looked at me as if I had just made a joke. What? No, even if we had anything, we wouldn't just be giving it away. I looked at him skeptically. All right, I know what you want. I have a gun with me. If you bring me food, I'll trade it for the gun. A gun? I had never used a firearm before, and I wasn't sure how a gun would help me in this situation. Hesitantly, I agreed to escape Frederick's impatient gaze. Maybe it would come in handy after all. But you'll have to make sure to share the food with the others. All right, whatever. Just give us something, all right? I don't have anything with me right now, I'm sorry. Then get the hell out of here and find something. He shouted at me and shoved me out of the room. I tripped and fell into the floor as he slammed the door shut in front of my face. That guy was a huge, bad guy. But I still felt bad for the other people in the room. Exactly. You can't let one spoil it for everyone. I'd have to go back there eventually if I wanted to help them. I dusted myself off and turned toward the other doors. Room 3. I entered the dimly lit room. It was desolate except for a few cans of food and a few water bottles in one of the corners. There were also 2 rather young children, one boy and one girl, in the middle of the room. Aw, they're by themselves. As I saw the girl kneeling over the boy's motionless body, my heart dropped. It was Amy and Lanny. She looked up at me with pleading eyes as I rushed to their side. Lanny was covered in sweat, indicating a heavy fever. His limbs were heavily bruised and he was heaving. I glanced over at Amy. Fortunately, she seemed to be all right. I'm Scott. We met yesterday. You're Amy, right? Yeah. Her voice was shaking. Lanny's sick. Don't worry, Amy. We'll find a way to help him. Scott remaining calm in the situation. Good for him. She hesitantly nodded. That seemed to calm her down a bit. I had some medicine on me, or at least that's what the woman who gave it to me called it. I couldn't really read the label. We're gonna give it to Lanny. It seemed like he would die if nothing was done. I decided to take the risk and administer the medicine to him. I have some medicine with me. He should be alright in no time if he takes this. I had sounded more confident than I actually was in the hopes of cheering Amy up. I made sure that he was conscious enough to drink it. Then I carefully lifted his head and put the bottle to his mouth. He slowly gulped it down, and I set his head back down. Will he be okay now? I think so, but it's going to take time for the medicine to take effect. All that was left to do was hope that what I gave him would help against the fever. Oh, so are we going to do like a back and forth exchange? You seem to have some food and water here. Do you think I could take some of it with me? More people are trapped in here and they don't seem to have any. I don't mind. Thank you. She did not seem very talkative, but that was to be expected considering how concerned about her brother she must be. I will let you know once I find something that can help you, okay? Okay. She turned back toward her brother. I walked by the canned food and considered taking some with me. Take half. I decided to take part of it with me, that way they would still have some left. I left the room and found myself back in the hallway. I guess we can go to... Let's check room 4. The room seemed to be empty except for a lonely light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It didn't seem to be working properly as it barely gave off any light and flickered every now and then. It took my eyes a while to get adjusted to the darkness, and right as they did, I realized that the room wasn't actually as empty as I had thought. A huge dog that I hadn't seen right away because of the poor lighting was just a few feet in front of me, and it was determined to rip me to pieces. I hastily stumbled backwards, almost tripping. This was it. I thought I was going to get mauled. But nothing happened. All I could hear was the rattling of a chain. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the dog was fortunately chained to the wall per its red collar. It was vehemently struggling to get free. After confirming that there was indeed no risk of getting free, I took a closer look around the room. There were small glittering objects strewn across the room next to the animal. Next to the dog was a body, a badly mutilated one. A foul feeling spread throughout my stomach. Did the dog do this? The corpse was lying too close to the dog to examine it. Instead, I cautiously inched closer to the object scattered on the ground next to it. I picked one up and examined it. It was a bullet. I had no use for the bullet yet, but if I did in the future, I'd know where to find one. When I took another close look at the area behind the dog, I saw that there was an opening in the wall. It seemed to lead to another section of the ship. This was the first time since getting trapped here that I had seen a possible escape route. The only problem was the furious animal blocking it. I couldn't think of a way to get around the dog without getting mauled. So I decided to retreat for now and look for a way to get past it without getting myself in danger. Alright, I think I know what to do. What was happening? An earthquake? The intensity of the rumbling increased and soon I was thrown from side to side. I struggled to stabilize myself but ultimately failed. My back hit the wall hard and I fell to the ground. I rolled into a ball trying to protect my head as I slid along the floor. The sound of metal breaking apart filled my ears. It was deafening. And then it stopped, just as suddenly as it had started. I stayed in a fetal position for a while longer, fearing that everything would start shaking again. But it seemed like it was finally over. Were the people inside the rooms all right? Had we perhaps run ashore? Would someone come and rescue us now that we were on land? A myriad of questions filled my mind. My eyes fell on the locked door to the hallway. Something about it was off. It was barely noticeable, but it seemed like the door was slightly skewed. I quickly approached it, turned the doorknob, and pulled on it. It was still stuck, but it did feel like I'd be able to pry it open with more force, and so I tugged again and again, each time the door inching more and more open until... Geez, the door flew open and I was thrown back. A strong gust of wind hit my face. I reflexively closed my eyes. I celebrated internally. Finally, I'd be able to get out of here and look for help. Finally, this nightmare would end. But I was mistaken. What I expected to see beyond the door was the hall and restaurant from the day before, but my expectations were utterly betrayed. Oh my God, the ocean, a huge body of water, was in the distance. As I looked down, I saw that we were hundreds of meters above the ground. How? How were we moving on land? What shocked me the most was that I could make out thin, long legs supporting the ship. Their movements were so smooth that I felt like we were floating. It was as if something inside was alive. My eyes wandered across the rest of the ship below me. It must have broken in half. The form of the tear was quite odd, though. It looked like a huge bite mark, as if something even bigger than the cruise ship had ripped into it. But that couldn't be true. There was no animal big enough that could have bitten off such a huge chunk of the ship. As the creature I was on made a sharp turn, the ocean drifted out of view. What is going on? My grip on the doorframe tightened. I fear I would get thrown off. Then, it stopped. My eyes widened in shock as I saw the scene before me. The view was surreal. What? It almost looks like fungi. Does this have anything to do with the spores? One single town was standing in the middle of a wasteland. Is that Kajamath? Wandering through that wasteland were enormous, outlandish creatures amongst gigantic mushrooms. They looked like something straight out of a nightmare. I wiped my eyes, trying to dispel the illusion before me, but it would not go away. My breathing became ragged and my chest contracted painfully. I had to accept this as my reality. In a trance, I stepped away from the doorframe. A wave of rage overcame me as I lashed out and kicked the wall. A dull pain spread throughout my foot, but I barely noticed it. Tears started to well up in my eyes. Was there even a reason for me to go on? Why shouldn't I just go back to my room, lie down in bed, and stay there? I leaned against the wall and stared at the ceiling. My feet were shaking. But I was finally starting to calm down. I knew that getting angry wouldn't help. What I was seeing wasn't logical in any way. It was against everything I had known. I was a scientist, so not being able to understand this place frustrated me. Above all, it scared me. But giving up was not the right thing to do. It wasn't the logical choice if I really wanted this nightmare to end. I'd escape sooner or later and get myself into a better position eventually. That's what I hoped, at least. This ship may still be suspended high above the ground, but there must be some way to get down. I would figure out what to do next once I was out of here. I closed the door and slowly let my eyes drift over the 4 doors in front of me. Okay, so we have food. We need to go to room 2. First thing I did after entering the room was taking a quick glance around to see if Frederick was nearby. To my detriment, he was. He jumped as he saw me come in. Hey, did you bring anything useful with you? He didn't even offer so much as a greeting. I do have food on me. Maybe I could trade it for the weapon. Yes, we're gonna trade. I decided to give the food to Frederick. It was probably a good idea to have a weapon with me in case I run into something out there. I have some food with me. I can give it to you and you can share it with the others. Frederick took a quick look around as if to make sure that no one was watching. Then he took a gun from his pocket. Here, take it quickly. Don't tell anyone you gave me this, okay? I was definitely not okay with keeping the food a secret and was about to protest, but he had already taken the food and shoved me out the door into the hallway. Damn. He threw the gun at my feet and slammed the door shut. What a jerk, I thought. Well, at least I had the gun now. I had never really used one before, but I've seen my fair share of crime movies, so I was certain that it would work out somehow. How hard could shooting a gun be, right? I checked the magazine to see how many bullets were in it. It was empty. Of course it was empty. That's why I handed it over so easily. Otherwise, he could have threatened me with it instead of trading it in. How could I have been fooled this easily? Frustrated, I put it away and turned toward the other doors. But don't I have a bullet? The dog instantly started barking and tugging on its chain. The hole in the wall behind it still seemed to be the only way out of this part of the ship. Once again, I went through my options to see what I could do to get past it. I had a gun and there were bullets next to the dog. Attack the dog using the gun? Yes. I quickly snatched up some of the bullets that were lying near the dog and loaded the gun. It felt rather heavy in my hands. I pointed at the creature. The dog had stopped barking and was glaring at me with mad eyes. It was as if it knew what the object in my hands was for. My breath was getting heavier. My heartbeat accelerated. My finger twitched, and sudden silence engulfed me. It was soon replaced by a high-pitched sound. I had instinctively closed my eyes. I slowly opened them. A red puddle started tainting the area around the dog's corpse. I looked at the gun in my hands, and a wave of disgust engulfed me. I forcefully threw it into a corner of the room. Immediately, I had started regretting what I had done to the animal. That's a tough situation. Cautiously, I stepped closer and watched it. I wanted to confirm whether it was really dead. Its body lay on the ground, motionless. It was truly dead without a doubt. I stepped over it and walked toward the hole in the wall. What I had done weighed heavily on my conscience. I stared into the hole. The hole stared back. Before I let the others know, I had to make sure that whatever was on the other side was safe. The hole was rather small and I had trouble fitting through, but I succeeded eventually. After a while, I noticed that something was off. The hole seemed to go on for longer than it should. What does that mean? Aren't we in a giant cruise ship? I expected to have already come out in another part of the ship, but it just went on and on. Then, a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my arm. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around, but I had already become too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. Before I could find out who it was, my consciousness faded. Okay. That same ending happens with all three stories. I think this character is dreaming at this point, and someone is administering an injection or a blood draw or something. He feels that pinch in his arm. We need to find the third key, though. Is this the ending here? How many times does this make now? Never thought his presence would make such a huge difference. Seems like his use is nearing its end. No need to keep him around then. I wonder how long it'll take until I find another one. Letting it end like this would be quite boring, though. And he did interact with her quite a lot. Maybe I should do one last experiment. I'll send him off with a bang. He deserves it for helping me so much. All right, time to go make preparations. This is the climax of the whole overarching plot here. What was... My head felt like it was splitting open. What was I doing? I had seen something. A nightmare? No, it had been real. Hadn't it? The pain was nearly unbearable. Images that seemed to have no relation to each other flashed through my mind, all three of the chapters. A plant, a dark room full of people, distorted faces, an ocean, 2 children, a blood trail, a pack of cats, a knife. Pain. My head felt as if it was about to burst, and then it was over. The pain was gone. I steadied myself. The images I had seen, were they hallucinations? Were they memories? My mind was all jumbled up. I called out as I left the bedroom, but no one answered. I approached the front door. My hand touched the cold doorknob. Sweat started to form on my arm. Was I afraid? Of what? I swallowed hard. My hand finally moved and I turned the doorknob. I stepped outside. I noticed that everything looked normal. My breathing slowed. I hadn't noticed how tense my body had become. I stepped into a narrow alleyway that seemed to be leading into a busier part of the town. It was bustling with life. Something about the people walking by was off, but it was hard to put a finger on it. I was too far away. I decided to avoid the main street for now, and instead went the other direction. My instincts told me that that was the right thing to do. Right as I turned into another alleyway, I saw something from the corner of my eyes. Had someone just entered one of the buildings? I hadn't turned my head quick enough. This brilliantly white structure seemed out of place amidst the gray houses that were lining the street. So, he doesn't recognize this town either. Are we still in like a dream world? As I trotted closer, I noticed that it looked awfully familiar to the lab I had worked in. No, it was the lab. What was it doing here? I stood in front of it for a while, dumbfounded, but there was no mistaking it. This was my lab. The easiest way to make sure was entering it. The interior looked exactly like I remembered it. No one was at the reception, meaning no one to manually open the door, but I fortunately still knew the passcode. I made my way upstairs and walked towards section M. On the way, I tried to keep my eyes and ears peeled in case one of my colleagues was around, but the place seemed to be totally deserted. That wasn't the only thing that was bothering me, though. Everything was oddly clean. Do you not have a clean lab? Most people would likely not think that this was something to be concerned about. The problem was there was no way someone had been able to find the time to tidy up the lab. Not only had we lost a big part of our staff, no one was in the right mood to bother with keeping things clean. Huh. So this is his lab, but it's not in the right spot? As I was contemplating what this might mean, I finally reached my destination, my office. The door was slightly ajar. Did someone break in? I cautiously opened it. The room was empty. My desk was gone, my file cabinets were gone, even the wallpaper was gone. What happened here? The only thing present was a single sheet of paper in the middle of the room. I hesitantly walked toward it. The door behind me suddenly slammed shut, and I jerked around. Was it the wind, or did someone slam it shut? But there was no door. I stood there in disbelief. Then I slowly turned around and looked back at the sheet of paper on the ground. My hands began to shake. The closer I got to the piece of paper, the worse the trembling became. I hesitantly let my eyes wander over to the red writing. Thank you for participating in my experiments. Whoa. Oh my god, it's May. What? That's May. Wait, 2 Mays? Oh, we need the 3rd key. I'm going back getting the 3rd key. We gotta find out what's really going on. Okay, so this time we're gonna give the food we got from Lanny and Amy to the people in the first room. Everything seemed different. The faces of the people here darkened considerably. I spotted the old man that I had talked to not too long ago and approached him. Is like time moving faster? But he didn't even look up as I greeted him. He just sat there with a blank expression on his face, not even moving an inch. Hey, is everything okay? No response. As I looked around, I noticed that none of the others had moved from their spot, nor had any of them looked up since I had entered the room. But that didn't happen in room 2. I tried to talk to them, but they wouldn't respond. It was as if they had suddenly turned into statues. Their eyes were devoid of any signs of life. I tried shaking them awake, but they did not react. Hello? Can anyone hear me? I cried out in the room in desperation, but my words echoed back emptily. What was going on? What had happened to them? Even though I was surrounded by people, I felt alone. Ugh. I jerked my head around. I scanned the dim room with my eyes until I finally saw something in one of the corners move ever so slightly. My heart started to race as I stepped closer. I couldn't quite make out what had made the sound, but it was probably a human, right? Oh god, I don't know. Ugh. It made a gurgling sound and I hesitated for a bit. Horrific images of all kinds of creatures popped into my mind. I shook my head and I tried to get them out of my head. After a few more cautious steps, I was finally close enough to see it. It was a girl. No, it wasn't just some girl, it was the same girl I had ran into on the deck. Her body was limp, but as opposed to the other people in this room, she seemed more or less conscious. I cautiously picked her up and made my way toward the door. The words of the old man echoed in my ears. He told me that she was able to pass through the door just like I was. But why hadn't she left the room by herself? Did something happen that she had got caught up in? And how did she get in here anyway? I would have noticed her in the hallway. I turned toward my room. It had a bed and she would probably be safe there. Opening the door while carrying the person was no easy feat, but I finally succeeded and put her on the bed. Home. Her facial expression changed from one of pain to one of relaxation. She instantly fell asleep. I debated whether I should wake her up and try to get some information out of her, but it didn't seem like she was in any condition to answer questions. Seeing her sleep so soundly made me want to take a break as well. But I pushed myself to step out of the room and back into the hallway. I still needed to see if there was any way to get out of here. Well, now I don't know what to do at all. Let me go back to room 3. I was worried about those two. All kinds of terrible scenarios had popped into my head. I glanced around the room. They fortunately seemed to still be more or less okay. I approached them. I had given Lanny some medicine, so he should be doing a little better. How's your brother feeling? Amy did seem to be much calmer than last time. His head doesn't feel as hot anymore. He has been sleeping for a long time, though. For a second, I considered the worst. But his pulse was fortunately still there. He did seem to be in a better state, and I was hopeful that he would get up soon with enough rest. How about you, Amy? Are you holding up all right? Yeah, I think so. I should get going again. I'll come back soon to check on you and Lanny again. Okay, I hope you won't have to be away for so long again. Long? I hadn't been out for that long. But it was understandable that she didn't want to be left all alone. She was likely exaggerating. I walked by the canned food and considered taking some with me. I'll take the remaining half. I decided to take the rest of the food with me. They'd be fine for a bit without it, and this would give me some trading leverage, which in turn could help them if I can find some medicine to trade the food for. But I couldn't help feeling terrible, even if my decision seemed logical to me. I left the room and found myself back in the hallway. Okay, this is the earthquake. We're gonna go to room 2. Yes, we're gonna trade all the food. Did nothing happen? Taking a quick glance, see if Frederick was nearby. We had a deal, remember? What are you talking about? You don't tell anyone about the food, and I give you the gun. Don't be an ass and break our deal. He planted himself right in front of me, close enough for me to smell a sour sweat. You gave me an unloaded gun, so that deal wasn't legitimate to begin with. So? I never said it was going to be loaded. You better get out now. He clenched his right fist. I was sure that he would actually punch me if I said another word. Realizing that I wouldn't get anything out of staying here, I stepped out back into the hallway. Well, let's go check on him. I was just about to greet Amy, but then I realized she wasn't kneeling in her usual spot. My heart began to race. I started to assume the worst. I walked toward the middle of the room where her brother was lying. My eyes were still adjusting to the weak lighting. And there she was, lying next to him. They both looked famished, as if they hadn't eaten in at least a week. How could this be? I wasn't gone for that long. Something must have happened while I wasn't here. Yeah, time is moving by extremely quickly. I shouldn't have left them alone. Then all of this wouldn't have... I could have stopped whatever did this to them, but I was too late. I approached them and checked both of their pulses. Nothing. I staggered backward. There was nothing I could do for them anymore. With a heavy heart, I stumbled out of the room. Room 1. I froze the moment I entered the room. I had seen some movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned my head, all I could see was a blank wall. As I stepped further in, I noticed a scratching sound. It was as if something was clawing at the wall, but I couldn't make out anything that could have been causing it. There was barely any movement at all. Everyone seemed to still be frozen in place. I stood in the doorframe and strained my ears. It was getting louder. I considered leaving, but curiosity overcame me. Slowly, I stepped into the room. Who the hell is this? It was then that I saw someone who seemed to still be awake. Their slight twitching was barely noticeable in the dim light. I considered calling out to them, but something told me not to. And so I cautiously inched toward them. But the closer I got, the more apparent it became that something was off. I froze. Their head. What's wrong with their head? Oh my god. Is it a zombie? It almost looked as if their face was melting off their bones. Their eyes were dark and hollow. I took a few hasty steps back, but they fortunately did not seem to react to my presence at all. The scratching seemed to have gotten even louder. I noticed something lying on the floor not too far away from the person I had just checked on. I hesitated. But my fearful glances were answered with complete silence and lack of any movement. I was still safe, probably. I shifted toward the thing on the ground and slowly picked it up. It was a sheet of paper that looked like it was ripped in half from a diary or a log. What the hell? If I was the leader of this operation, I'd fire anyone who let ethics get in the way. Sacrifices always need to be made to ensure humanity's future. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll just continue my research in private since it's not like there aren't enough subjects inside the zone. Zone? I couldn't make heads or tails of this note. I was missing too much context. The scratching got even louder. Oh god. Something was definitely not right here. I should probably get out of here. I let my eyes wander over the room one last time and made my way back outside. Let me check room 1 again. Oh. He's not going to go back in. Okay. Oh, he will! The door slowly creaked open and I glanced inside the room. The people that were here were gone. The room was completely empty. In their place was a black substance. Was that blood? Then the scratching started. It seemed to be coming from every direction at once. As I tried to make out its source, I noticed something at the very far end of the room. There were ripples on the wall. It almost looked like the wall was made out of water. Slowly, something started to push itself through the thick, liquid-like texture. First, it was a single hand. What the hell is going on here? Then more and more arms started to appear, all of them grasped at empty air. All the while, the scratching was getting louder and louder. I tried to shield my ears with my hands. My instincts told me to run, but I was frozen in place. I couldn't avert my eyes from the scene before me. Slowly, feet started to reach through the wall, and then finally their whole body was free. The scratching had stopped. I recognized the clothes of some of the creatures in front of me. These were the people who had been trapped in this room, but their heads weren't human anymore. Their faces were distorted beyond recognition. As I stared at them in disbelief, I noticed that none of them were moving. They were just staring at me. Then one of them slowly lifted their arm, grasping at the air, and started to slowly walk toward me. It almost looked as if it was pleading. Then the others followed suit. I started to feel a mixture of terror and pity. But as they got closer and closer, my terror grew stronger and stronger. What would they do once they reached me? They definitely weren't human anymore. Were they about to attack me? My head began to spin and I took a few hasty steps back, almost tripping on my way out of the room. There was nothing I could do for them. I was too late. If only I could have found a way out before they turned into that. Frustrated and with a heavy heart, I slammed the door shut. Room 2. I heard a big ruckus coming from beyond the door as I opened it. This startled me and I almost slammed the door back shut. How did I not hear this commotion out in the hallway? People were screaming, punching, kicking, and pulling each other's hair. Did they find out that Frederick was hiding food? Others were smashing other people's heads against walls. Everyone was doing their best to kill and not be killed. It was a horrible scene. As I stood there, dumbfounded, I quickly realized what this was all about. People were fighting over food. Instead of sharing it, they decided to fight each other for it. Soon, I couldn't differentiate dead from alive as everyone was covered in blood. I watched in horror. Suddenly, a brawling pair came dangerously close to me. I tried to dodge, but my back hit the doorframe and I was pushed out of the room as they slammed against me. I don't even think they saw me, as they were too immersed in their fight. It seemed like the food shortage had driven them to insanity. The door slammed shut and I was left alone. In the once again quiet hallway. Hesitantly, I debated whether or not I should go back in the room and try to break up the fight. I mean, we can try. I felt uneasy about entering the room, but I had to find out what had happened to everyone in here. With a foul feeling in my stomach, I stepped over the threshold. What I saw was way worse than anything I could have imagined. The stench was overwhelming. 40 lifeless, blood-covered bodies were lying on the floor. Somehow, they had already started decomposing, even though I hadn't been gone for that long. The smell was enough to make me want to vomit, and I knew that if I stayed here any longer, I would. But I had to see if there were any survivors. I slowly made my way to the middle of the room to get a better look at the situation, but then the worst happened. I stepped on something soft and wet. My foot sunk in and my sock was soaked. My body froze. Slowly my eyes wandered to the ground. Ugh. My foot was stuck in the torso of one of the dead bodies. Almost in a panic, I turned around and stumbled out of the door. When I got back out in the hallway, I gasped for air and did my best to suppress my gagging and tears. It took me a while to get myself back together. I couldn't believe what I had seen in that room. It almost felt like a nightmare. But I knew I had to move on. Check room 3. Couldn't bring myself to open the door. Okay. Room 2. Door was sealed shut. They were all dead. Room 1. I can't help them anymore. Room 4. Room seemed to be empty except for a lonely light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Alright, this is the room with the dog, which we already know about. Opening in the wall seemed to lead to another section of the ship. Escape route. I'm gonna say no. This might be a bad idea. I didn't feel too enthusiastic about the prospect of killing an animal. Also, I've never handled a gun before. Maybe I could find another way to get past it. I couldn't think of a way to get around the dog without getting mauled. And so I decided to retreat for now and look for a way to get past it. Okay. Well, it looks like I don't have an option, so I think I need to try this again. Okay, so this time I think I need to make sure I save the children by not taking all of the food. So what I need to do first is go to room 1 with the medicine, go to room 3 with the kids, give them the medicine, take half. No. I'm not going to trade the food this time. Let's see what happens. Considering how rude Frederick had been to me, I didn't feel like giving him anything. Though I did feel bad for the others, but the people in the other rooms might need it more, so I decided to keep it to myself for now. I don't have anything with me right now. Sorry. Then get the hell out of here and find something. Okay, shut me back out. So they still have food. I was worried about those two. I decided against taking any. I left the room and found myself back in the hallway. Oh, this is the earthquake part. I was eager to see if the body's condition improved. I didn't think the medicine could have actually worked this quickly, but his fever might have at least gone down a bit. To my surprise, he was already up and about. Okay, so now we saved them. Amy was leaning on a wall, while Lanny was frantically running around and knocking on the walls. They didn't seem to have heard me come in. I don't think there's any secret exit anywhere. You should probably save your energy till they come and save us. You know how long it's been already, right? If they wanted to save us, they would have done that forever ago. I bet I can find something. There has to be a way out of here. Unfazed by his sister's advice, he continued to search every inch of the wall. Amy seemed to finally spot me and jog toward me. Scott, did you manage to find a way out? Yeah, a lot of time passes between the doors. The boy turned around and hastily came closer as well. You're Scott? Amy told me you helped me with the medicine. Thank you a lot. Don't worry about it. And to answer your question, Amy, unfortunately not yet. The hope drained from their expectant eyes as I said that. I wish I could have brought them good news. But never mind that. I'm surprised that you're better already, Lanny. Already? I don't think any sickness has ever kept me down longer than this one. I practically slept through a whole week after you gave me the medicine. What? A week? Yeah, good thing we had enough food and water. It seemed like they were serious. I was pretty sure that it hadn't been that long since the last time I had seen them. Have you really been trapped in here for a week? Yep. That didn't make any sense. But I was feeling so glad about Lanny being all right again that I decided to postpone my questions about this. Getting them out as quickly as possible had top priority. So, what about your parents? Were they with you when this whole thing happened? No, they were somewhere on the ship, but not in the same room as us. I see. Can you tell me what they looked like? I can let them know that you're safe if I meet them. They proceed to give me a detailed description of their parents, I did my best to memorize everything. So you came here as a group of 6, your parents, Sabrina, and Frederick, right? Yeah, and our dog came too. You can probably recognize our dad pretty quickly. Dog. Is the dog in the other room theirs? He's a bit odd since he always carries bullets with him as a lucky charm, but no actual gun. He always says, I don't think he needs to know. Lanny gave her an irritated look. Oh, I almost forgot. Did you meet a girl while looking around? She wears a hoodie and a skirt. That description sounded oddly familiar. Could they mean the girl I had met on the ship deck? I hadn't seen her since yesterday, however. Can't say that I have. She was here shortly before you came. She was really nice and told us that she'd find a way to help Lanny, but she never came back. I'm worried about her. I want to go home with Mom and Dad. Her words were almost inaudible, but both Lanny and me picked it up. Don't worry, we'll get out of here soon. I felt really bad for them, but I wasn't sure what I could do to help. Staying here and lending them my company would be a way. But then I couldn't search for a way to get them out. Maybe I could look for their family first to make sure they knew that their children were safe. But I was afraid of how many days will have passed the next time I'd enter this room. The flow of time seemed to be peculiar in this place. I came to the conclusion that I had to keep on searching for a way out if I wanted to help them. I should probably go now. I'll let your parents know that you two are all right if I meet them. You two sit tight and stick together until I come back. All right? I'll have found a way out to get you out by then. I'll have found a way to get you out by then. Don't worry, sorry. Oh, and let us know if you find our dog. He's a Doberman with a red collar. Okay, I'll let you know if I see it. With that, I turned around and stepped outside. So, this dude in room 2 is their dad. He's their dad. I also noticed a woman earlier that looked similar to how the siblings had described their mother. Should I give the food to her? Yes. Sorry, I don't have it, so we're gonna lie to Frederick again. I quickly walked past Frederick and approached the woman. Frederick sat back down frustrated, clenching his fists angrily. Hey, are you by any chance the mother of Amy and Lanny? Her eyes shot open. Have you seen them? Are they okay? Yes, they're all right. They're in another room and have enough food and water to survive for quite a while. Oh, thank God. She looked very relieved, but I knew that she wouldn't be able to fully stop worrying about them until they were back together. I quickly glanced around to make sure that Frederick wasn't looking our way. Then I got the cans of food out and held them out to her. Here, this should get you by for some time. She looked a bit confused, but still happily took the cans and hid them under her mantle. Are you sure that you wouldn't rather trade food for his gun? She pointed at Frederick, but I shook my head. No, I'd rather let you have the food. I'm not sure if I can trust him to share it properly. All right, but take this with you. She pulled out something shiny. A key? Please be the key? From under her mantle and handed it to me. It was a knife. Okay. It's probably not quite as useful as a gun, but it's better than nothing. It might help you. I hesitantly took it and put it away. Thank you. I'll make sure to let you and everyone else know once I found a way out. With that, I bid my farewells and walked toward the exit. Before I could step out of the door, I was rudely confronted by Frederick. Hey, what did you two talk about? Nothing. I really didn't feel like dealing with him, so I turned around and kept walking toward the door. He forcefully grabbed my arm, preventing me from leaving. Don't try anything funny, all right? Yeah, get out of here, dude. All right. I feel like the knife... Do I use it on the dog? Do I go back and check on the kids? The dog room had shiny stuff on the floor, I think, other than bullets. Can I get it with the knife somehow? I could attack it with the knife I got from the sibling's mother. Let's just see what happens. Because I don't really know what to do at this point. I slowly approached the creature. The knife felt heavy. Strengthened my resolve and lunged toward the dog. I closed my eyes at the last moment. I felt a sharp sting in my hand and jumped back. The dog had managed to lightly injure me, and now that it tasted blood, it seemed to tug on the chain even more furiously. Since I had pulled back my hand quickly enough, I only sustained a small scratch. The dog, on the other hand, seemed to have dodged my strike effortlessly. For fear of losing one of my fingers, I discarded the knife idea for now. I couldn't think of a way to get around the dog without getting mauled, and so I decided to retreat for now and look for a way to get past it without getting myself in danger. Room 3? What good would that do? I still hadn't found an exit. Okay. Maybe the dog is dead if I wait long enough? No, he's still there. The dog instantly started barking and tugging on its chain. The hole in the wall behind it still seemed to be the only way out of this part of the ship. Once again, I went through my options to see what I could do to get past it. I could attack it with the knife I got from the sibling's mother. Decided against it. In the end, I still couldn't think of a way to get around it, and so I had no other choice but to simply retreat. Really? Its barking seemed weaker. Time is passing. I knew it. I knew the time thing had to come into effect. Yes, a miserable creature. It was weak, lying on the ground, only able to bark and growl at me. I had no idea what had caused it to become like this, considering that I hadn't been gone for that long. This might be my chance, I thought to myself, but as I approached the hole, the dog managed to snatch at me and almost bit me. Apparently, it was still capable of hurting me in this state. I could attack it with the knife I got from the sibling's mother. Knife might be a valid option. The monster looked up as I got closer, glaring at the knife in my hands with hate-filled eyes. I was afraid, but I knew that I had to do this to get past it. As I got closer, it started to writhe. It was almost as if it was trying to escape me. Once I stood right next to it, it once again tried to snap at me. I debated whether I should try to get past it without killing it, but the risk was too big. If I was to be bitten here, the wound could easily get infected. The dog could also carry diseases like rabies. I cautiously approached it and readied my weapon. At the last moment, I instinctively closed my eyes. As I felt the knife touch his body, I quickly jumped back. The knife almost tumbled out of my grip. When I opened my eyes, I could see that my aim had been off. I only managed to scratch its back. I still felt terrible. It became even more furious as it intensified its attempts to bite me. This time, I had to deliver the final strike. I wanted to get this over with as quickly as possible, and I didn't want to suffer any longer. I took aim at its neck. The red collar it was wearing stared back at me. It's their dog. Of course, but we now know for sure because the red collar. Again, I had instinctively closed my eyes at the last moment. When I opened my eyes, I saw the creature stare back at me. It had stopped barking. I looked at where I had aimed with my knife. There was no blood. Sorry, little burp. I had missed. Or to be exact, I hit the wrong target. Instead of the dog, I had cut its collar. Oh, shoot. So the dog's free now. I quickly brought my hands up to my face as the dog lunged at me. My feet entangled and I fell backwards. Air was forced out of my lungs as my back hit the ground and my dog stepped on my stomach. If I hadn't been such a coward and hadn't closed my eyes, I wouldn't now be getting mauled by a dog. I readied myself for the oncoming attack, but nothing happened. I slowly opened my eyes. The dog had already stepped off my body and was running toward the door to the hallway. Why hadn't it attacked me? Did it think I was freed on purpose? Or I freed it on purpose? Either way, I was happy that I was still unharmed. As I looked at the ground where the dog had previously been, I noticed something it had left behind. Oh! It was the dog's collar. Something had been attached to its inner side. A key. Bingo! I had no idea what this key was for, but I decided to take it with me. It might come in handy later. Cautiously, I walked toward the hole in the wall. Alright, so this is the part we already did. Okay, so we have all of the keys now. Good. Good. Do we get an alternate ending? How does this work? So I think that may be the ending. I know we got a new extras menu, so let's see what the extras menu is, because maybe that's where we use the keys. They said it's like post-game content. I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. It seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore, but it must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. It was just a dream, just a nightmare, nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But I was more confident that I'd be able to find help now that it was daytime. I left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case, but when I passed the front door, I noticed a sheet of paper that was taped to it. The handwriting was very crude, but I was able to make out what it said. No escape. Had someone been in here while I was asleep? And what did they mean with no escape? I tugged on the door, it didn't budge. I tugged again and again and again, and each time with increasing force, it did not move an inch. Was I actually trapped in here? I quickly moved to the nearest window and tried to open it. But I couldn't. Just like the door, this window didn't budge. It was as if it was painted on the wall. The same was true for the other windows. In my desperation, I picked up a chair and threw it at the glass, but nothing happened. It didn't even cause a visible scratch. This was madness. Had someone locked me in on purpose? How could I escape? I quickly went from door to door and tried to open them, and to my surprise, one of them opened. I did not check every door or did I not check every door properly yesterday? Or did the person who was here before I woke up open it? The room looked like a study. A very small and empty study. The only notable objects were a desk and a computer. The desk had 4 drawers. Peeking at someone's private possessions did not sit well with me, but this wasn't the time to think about that. I need to find a way to escape. I tugged on one of the drawers, closed. There were keyholes on the front of the drawers. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I took another look below the desk and behind the computer, but there was nothing of note. This also meant that there was no phone here I could use to call for help. But if this computer was connected to the internet, then I might be able to contact a colleague or a friend. When I put a hand into my pockets out of habit, I felt something metallic brush my hand. My pockets had been empty the day before. I pulled out what was inside and realized I was holding several small keys that I did not recognize. My puzzled look wandered toward the drawers. What should I examine? Computer. I switched the computer on and was greeted to a simplistic interface. Huh. Welcome, Maria. Okay. Text file. Hints to finding the keys, part 1. Okay. We already did that. Yeah, okay. So this just tells you how to get the keys. We already know how to do that. We already did that. Anything else I can do? Achievements. Okay. Code cracker for to enter Pengambara mode? I don't even know what that is. Okay. Press play? Oh, that's music. Replay outro. Okay, I can turn the computer off. So, computer, nothing I need to do right now. Let's go ahead and open the keys and figure out what's really going on here. Drawer 1. I slid the key into it, and it fit. I actually somehow had this drawer's key. Inside the drawer was an unassuming USB drive. I put it into one of the computer's USB slots. Drawer 2. Good. Drawer 3. And what about drawer 4? I was about to open the drawer when I realized there was no handle. Checking its sides and underside didn't uncover any hidden switches or keyholes. There was no way to open it without breaking it down bit by bit, which would take forever without proper tools. But this drawer might contain a way for me to escape. A spare house key, for example. I decided to work on dismantling the drawer while I wasn't investigating the rest of the room. You can open the 4th drawer in this version of the game, or you can't open the drawer in this Wait, what? You can't open the 4th drawer in this version of the game? Thank you for your patience. Maybe they're still working on that? All right, well, let's check out the others. I had already taken the... Oh, okay. Okay, let's check the computer. I switched the computer on and was greeted to a simplistic interface. Let's check out what these say. Very interesting. What is that Pengambara mode? Text files. Log 1. Our department was tasked with finding a cure for the recent outbreak, and I was appointed co-team lead to help with our insane workload. Since my partner will cover the logistical side of things, I can focus on research, experimentation, and choosing what to share with other departments. Is this May? Or I guess Maria is her real name? Because we know that she's like a scientist in the real world. That's why she was able to like, it seemed like she was an outside presence. First, I'd like to summarize the subject. A new type of disease was discovered at excavation site 1208. It was simply named 1208, or ZOZ. So we'll call it Zaz. Cause unknown. Team D is currently stationed on site. Zaz has no symptoms at first, but eventually causes lightheadedness, which is strange since it keeps blood flowing to the head. Suddenly, victims fall into a coma, their bodies decay, their neck region hardens, and their brain mostly stays intact. Due to the disease's mysterious nature and transmissibility, we're forbidden to leave the quarantine zone. Those of us working on the cure here are especially at risk. The chance of contamination is high. Thanks to Team D, we know that this spore-like... okay. Scott was remembering his research on the spore-like disease in the real world during these like simulations or dreams or whatever they were. Spore-like microorganisms are mostly the cause of Zaz. This confirms a prior theory about aerial transmission. Furthermore, we discover that the heads from the excavation site are emitting more of them. I don't know how many of us are infected, but recent victims of Zaz should start exhibiting its few symptoms any day now. Further testing is needed to learn how these microorganisms affect our bodies in such gruesome ways. If we can do that, we can find ways to fight back against Zaz. Ugh, this entire situation's giving me a headache. With all the information gathered by Team D, we were able to draft a rough plan for the cure's development. I'm hopeful that we can make it quickly before Zaz spreads beyond the local populace. Each team has set up sleeping quarters in and around the labs so that everyone can spend as much time as possible working on this. Some of us have gotten as little as 1 hour of sleep these past few nights. Hopefully our sacrifices will be worth it. One variant of the cure is making steady progress, otherwise things have been generally slow. I fear the longer this takes, the more our morale will fall, especially as people within the quarantine zone fall victim to Zaz. A colleague of mine broke down when he heard that Zaz had traveled further than expected. His family lived in one of the newly affected quarantine zones. Team C has also had problems with one of their scientists who got themselves banned from the research center. Apparently she performed non-consensual experiments on people affected with Zaz. That is May. I guarantee you that is May. Due to the dire situation we're in, some might want to try extreme methods, but I agree that she went too far. Hopefully nothing similar happens here. For now, I think I need to lay down. One of our facilities branches created a reliable means of telling whether someone has Zaz before they fall into a coma. I've been given a prototype of the test and was curious enough to try it on myself. Unfortunately, it came back positive. I should have known since I've been handling the spores daily. Not even following every possible precaution helped. How am I supposed to finish my research now? I'll just have to do it as quickly as possible. No one can know. This can't all be for nothing. The cure my team has been working on is almost complete. If I can, I'm going to try it on myself first, since it should wipe out any Zaz spores within an infected person. It's my only hope. At least this way, if something happens, no one else has to suffer from our short-sightedness. I know I don't have much time left, so I've been working on it non-stop. I don't want to try it on someone else without knowing with 100% certainty that it works. If it does, it shouldn't affect uninfected people. We'll distribute it to everyone if so. It's better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to think about what will happen to me if it's ineffective. Writing these logs is getting harder. Darkness sometimes creeps in on the edges of my vision. It's difficult to stand, and I feel like I'm moving through water. If this ends up being my last entry, then goodbye everyone, and good luck. I recently encountered an interesting species of plant, one I hadn't seen before. It had a rather large stem, which was dotted with countless tiny mushrooms. Botany is not my specialty, so I took it to an old colleague of mine who knows the field. He couldn't make sense of it either. One thing I quickly observed is that animals, mainly mammals like cats and dogs, seem to be highly attracted to the plant. Okay. So, these simulations almost seem... What is the truth here? Most eat them, some even refuse to eat anything but. My botanist colleague and I decided to keep looking into these plants and the animals who eat them, at least until we solve this mystery. Is this Sabrina writing this? Eventually, I was able to observe a drastic change in animals that ate the plant. Their bodies deformed over time as they fed, and they became incredibly aggressive. Looking at them, they almost seemed to develop human or human-like features. I feared I might be attacked at some point, so I locked all of my test subjects in cages. They only ate the damn plants. I had to keep feeding them an all-plant diet, and it still disturbs me. They all started to look even more human. They also became far, far more dangerous. An ex-dog sniffed at a cloth my botanist colleague left behind and became highly agitated. It broke out of its cage and raced outside to who knows where. I chased after it, and of course, it was already long gone. Needless to say, I reinforced the cages the other animals are being held in. Today is the day after that incident. I just received word that my colleague was found dead in his home with a big blood puddle underneath him. A DNA test revealed that it wasn't his. The person who found him swore that a weird monster was lying right where the puddle was, but slowly dissolved. Obviously, no one believed her. Wow. My working hypothesis at this time is simple. These monsters can be used to seek out and kill someone, but they die immediately afterward. While I mourn the loss of my colleague and friend, I need to continue our research. I have a feeling that other people have found out what the plants can be used for. They must be developing their own pets in secret. So, wow. It won't go so smoothly. I'll have to keep growing my own and hope that I'm faster, better than they are. I should be okay as long as I avoid leaving anything of mine at someone's home. They can only do something if they have my scent, after all. It's just too bad those things die after only one use. There are the images. Wow. Here we go. The news talked about a new epidemic that's broken out, but refused to give any info other than the disease sends you into a coma-like state. They just told us to stay in our homes. There's talk of a contamination zone or a quarantine as well. One of the neighbors said they'll stop people from leaving the area, even by force if necessary. My sister, who is assigned to a team researching the sickness, also told me that she'll be away from home until the situation's resolved. I feel so alone and helpless. This has been going on for way longer than I expected. My sister still hasn't come home since she left. I know she has to work day and night to help everyone, but I just can't help missing her. We've been through so much since we left home. I heard that some of my neighbors have the disease too. I really hope they find a cure. Also, I've started having weird dreams lately. I always find myself in a town that I haven't seen before. My neighbors are all there, but are perfectly healthy. That's pretty normal on its own, but it's the exact same town every time. We're getting somewhere. It's like I really am walking the streets and seeing the sights there. Things are always lucid to an extent. Time just progresses in strange ways, like hours pass by in a matter of minutes, and I don't even notice. I must be having these dreams because of all the stress. My sister suddenly came home. I was really happy at first, but she seemed different. When I asked what was bothering her, she said she got fired and wouldn't tell me why. I just let it go. I told her about my weird dreams too, but she barely listened. Maybe I can do something to cheer her up? My sister left yesterday night but didn't tell me where she was going. She came back with this weird device, which she said is for telling whether someone has Zaz. Zaz is apparently the name that gave the sickness. I let her use it on me. Apparently I got infected somehow, but I figured that was probably the case. Most of our neighbors are in comas, and I saw some of the ones who aren't just yesterday. I guess it couldn't be helped. She asked if I'd let her inspect me. I was hesitant, but she talked me into it. My sister told me something weird today. Apparently, I should already be in a coma, but I don't feel any different than usual. This led her to think that maybe, somehow, my body can fight the disease. She told me to stay put and not tell anyone until she was absolutely sure. When I asked why I couldn't go to the research facility and let them have a look, she got really defensive. She said that they might hurt me. I'll let her test her theories for 2 more days. After that, I'll see if someone else can find anything. Is this Scott writing this? I don't know what happened to my sister. We've always been close. She's my best friend, but she's just not the same person anymore. But Scott was a scientist. I tried to leave today because her 2 days are up, but she protested. Things got physical and she overpowered me. She locked me in my room and screamed about how it's for your own good and they'll kill you. I wish I was strong enough to break free. When she calmed down, she told me that there's something in our bodies preventing the sickness from developing. She even said that she infected herself to test that theory. That made me cry. First because I thought she was insane, then because I was glad she's okay. I had another weird dream today. I was in that town again, but I met my sister there. We talked and she said she'd been having the same dream ever since she infected herself. As soon as we were up, she stormed into my room and started asking questions. She said it might be because of Zaz, but that doesn't make any sense. Oh my god, I think I know what's happening. Zaz is a spore-like, fungus-like disease. They're having dreams where they're in the same town, and they're starting to have those dreams together, where they're in each other's dreams. Fungi have like a hive, like a collective hive mind, a collective consciousness kind of thing. What if that's a part of the disease? and everyone who's infected by it is experiencing the same dream with each other, which is like the collective consciousness. Oh man, it's getting good. Since yesterday, I've been hearing weird noises outside my room every now and again. My sister keeps saying that everything's fine and I'm just imagining things, but I'm scared. Sometimes it's just random shuffling, but sometimes it sounds like muffled screams. What are you doing out there, Mary? Mary. Not May. Mary. There are generally 3 methods to reach the pinnacle of face comedy: distortion, removal, and addition. We'll start with the easiest one, distortion. Okay, so the second text file is just about the individual dream stories. What's actually going on in the real world is just the spore stuff. The second text files is about the dreams. Distortion, this is what the book about the most hilarious one says. Distortion is a simple but not well-refined technique, so I wouldn't recommend trying it for too long. Still, good fundamentals provide a basis for improvement, meaning you, my dear reader, should keep paying attention. The easiest way to distort one's facial features is with the fingers. For example, you could pull up your eyelids. So basically, it's just describing the idea of making a funny face. Staples. Next, let's discuss removal. This is an intricate, highly involved process. You can completely excise parts of your face to look funnier, and maybe even charm your crush. To do this, you need... Okay. So, again, it's just... the journal. I don't want to dwell too much on this because it doesn't really have an impact on the overall story. Addition. Cream of the crop. So, addition is like when you take someone else's features and add it to your own. What does that say? Never steal from a fellow comedian. Oh, that's why that's why Frederick was just looking for people that weren't trying to do funny faces. Okay. That's fine. Okay, let's go to the final text file. They actually fired me. Me. How could they be so short-sighted? We need to use every possible method in combating Zaz. If I was the leader of this operation, I'd fire anyone who let ethics get in the way. Sacrifices always need to be made to ensure humanity's future. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll just continue my research in private, since it's not like there aren't enough subjects inside the zone. Frankly, I can't believe I originally thought I was unlucky to live here when this happened. It was a stroke of luck. First, I need to get my notes back. Those numbskulls wouldn't let me take them when they threw me out, and whined about how they're company property. It's my IP. I did the labor. I know my contract. And I know they don't have a leg to stand on. They just want to claim they found the cure. But it'll be me. At least security isn't too tight at the moment. Massive steps toward discovering a cure. My sister has Zaz, and although I don't know when she was infected, she says she feels fine. This means the chance of natural immunity, or at least natural resistance, is greater than 0. I'll have to take drastic measures and see if this resistance is genetic. Normally I'd exercise caution, but time is running out. No one else deserves the honors but me. My hypothesis was proven true after a few successful tests and self-injection. It seems my sister and I are both... So the other person wasn't Scott then. Are both completely immune to the disease. I will immediately start development on a cure. May. Wait a minute. The end wasn't 2 Mays. The end was Mary and her sister May. May suggested giving herself up to my colleagues, but I convinced her to stay. So Mary is the crazy one. That was probably the one that was trying to stab me with a knife. May was the other... Oh. Was the person that was looking at us. They have a bigger team, so I'd have no chance to catch up if they found out about her. She gave me 2 days. I'll have to find a way to keep her here after that. It's not just for our sakes, but everyone's. I've been having odd dreams as of late. I always wake up in the same town, then find myself wandering through it for hours on end. Sometimes I see people sitting alongside the road, all of whom look identical to my test subjects. That's because the test subjects have the spore-like disease, and they're all in their collective, while they're in their comas, in the collective consciousness of the fungi, all experiencing it together. There are multiple different organisms, but one organism technically as well. I've even met some who look like my infected neighbors, but they always insist that they've been living there all their life and even recount events from their childhood to prove it. Strangely, I met May there too. She was shocked to see me, but the feeling wasn't exactly mutual. She mentioned something about having strange dreams the other night. I suppose this is just one of the disease's symptoms. Could Zaz be related to a collective unconscious? Yes, it could. I knew it. I knew it. Even if it's only shared amongst a few people, do we really need to get rid of it? If so, we could have eternal life in that alternate world. No, I'm too committed to stop now. The things I've done, that I'll have to do, are too much to allow that. I'm even running out of Zaz infected. Maybe I need some uninfected subjects. Last night, I broke into the lab again to see how their research was going, and to collaborate with them. There's only so much I can do at home. Most people were asleep, but some weren't. When I thought I'd been found out, they just walked past me with blank expressions on their faces. Things must not be progressing too smoothly for them, or maybe the numbskulls in charge have forced a crunch. Whatever it is, it can't be good for them. I'm glad to see it. It means I'm ahead of them, and that I can help them by perfecting my cure. I was about to leave with my borrowed data. As I was about to leave my borrowed data, I found a scientist just outside the facility. He was unconscious, so I brought him home. This is Scott. This is Scott. I soon found out that he was already infected, so at least I didn't have to do that part myself. That's why Scott didn't remember anything or know where he was. I just finished designing a new formula for my cure. This lucky guy can be the first to try it. As I was exploring the other side, I realized that I could very slightly change the environment and even the people around me. Does my resistance have something to do with it? Is it some kind of blessing or a great curse? I also noticed something truly peculiar about my last test subject. He met my sister in the dream, but didn't have any fake memories. Unlike everyone else, he seemed to be lost and was trying to find his way back home. Maybe it's because of the new formula I injected him with. That pinch in his arm at the end is the formula. It might not have been enough to cure him, but he seemed to have the same awareness about that place May and I do, minus the power to actually wake up. It also seemed as if his presence is impacting the world and people around him, similar to May and me, but more extremely. This is a great stroke of luck on my part. I think I'll try testing how far I can wrap that place further, and he'll make an excellent control group. Say, I wonder what happens to the people in the real world when their Zaz dream self dies. Buried village uncovered by archaeological expedition. So this is about the third dream. Last month, a team led by renowned archaeologist Herschel Soya set out to examine the recent landslide's path and origin. They discovered artifacts this past Monday, and today learned that these belong to an underground village near Pengambara. How or why it was buried remains unclear, but it's certain that this discovery will shed considerable light on our local history. Dr. Soya asked our paper not to disclose the dig site's current location so that he and his team can work without distractions. When questions about why no one came forward regarding the artifacts, one archaeologist said, "We just didn't know what we were dealing with. It'd be premature. Here's hoping more interesting things get unearthed in the coming days." Archaeological findings perplex expert. In a follow-up to yesterday's front page story, Herschel Soya's archaeology team had discovered several human heads in the ground. The strange part, explained Dr. Soya, is that these buried heads' level of deterioration implies they're much younger than the village. When asked if they might be recent, he said that the possibility was a strong one. The team had sent some of their findings to laboratories and the police for analysis. At the very least, this might explain what happened to these people, or how they ended up in such an abandoned underground place. The newly christened Buried Hamlet archaeological team made major progress today. This afternoon, Dr. Soya identified the village as more of a hamlet. Its people relied on farming to survive. There are no bigger historical villages near it or Pengambara, so the residents were secluded. However, there may be more buried nearby. Before investigating the surrounding areas, the team will focus on fully uncovering the hamlet and its secrets. Unfortunately, sudden lightheadedness in certain members has slowed their progress. This is actually detailing them finding the spores. When asked to provide more information on the heads his team uncovered on Saturday, Dr. Soya informed our paper that he's still awaiting results from the police and laboratories. I don't want to speak too soon. The Buried Hamlet archaeological team, led by Herschel Soya, can connect themselves to another strange occurrence. Disembodied, buried heads they uncovered on Saturday were found to be more recent than expected. A coroner's report noted that blood circulation never stopped for a moment, even though specific parts of the brain had died. What we have here are essentially people in perpetual coma. Yes, the spores. This borders on witchcraft, a scientist remarked. We still have no idea how it happened. Our assumption is that the heads have been preserved by an unknown parasite or some other organism. Zaz. The police, meanwhile, say that the heads don't match any missing persons reports from the last 3 years. We can't publish this. The coroner is claiming that this news might tarnish their reputation, and it might hurt ours because of how absurd it is. If this is all you have today, then remove their comment or claim that it was anonymous. Okay. So. Oh my god. I don't remember seeing this picture. Jeez, ew. That's dark. Okay. So, what happened here? What really happened here This Zaz infected started infecting people. It's this fungi. People started going into comas. Mary went crazy looking for a cure. May and Mary were immune to it. So Mary was like experimenting or trying to, do research even though she was fired, probably for going crazy. May was interacting with Scott in the dreams. May was who we saw in the dreams, interacting with Scott, trying to help us in a sense. The one that laughed, like the one doing mischievous things, like when they mentioned, oh, well, that one girl with the skirt and the hoodie laughed and ran away. That was Mary, who was also in the dream. So there were two people. And it's all bringing it together in this collective unconscious dream world that we could all interact with. That is absolutely fascinating. That's not at all the direction I thought this was going in. That's so cool. That's so cool. Wow. I feel like... Let me check the computer real quick again. I want to check the achievements. I don't know what the Penguin Bara mode is. And I kind of want to know. Wow, this actually had a really good overarching story. That's so cool. Read all the extra text. You figured out the code to enter Penguin Bara mode. Huh. What code? Maybe that hasn't been added yet or something? I have no idea. Let's go ahead and go back to bed. That's the only other option. Maybe we should lie back down and take a nap. Right? There's no way I would be stuck here forever. Right? You're still in the dream world. Wow. Let's go ahead and replay the outro. That's the last thing I want to do. Because I want to see if that changes anything at all. I promise last thing. Then I'll let you guys go. This is crazy. Here we go. Replay outro. How many times did this make now? All right, let's go ahead. Nope. Okay. Exact same thing. Thank you for participating in the experiments. Okay, so we know what really happened. We know the overarching story. I think Drawer 4 just maybe hasn't been added to the game yet, but man, this was something else, guys. Mycorrhiza, I think it's called. I think that's the pronunciation. Excellent stuff. If I did miss anything, feel free to let me know, and I can take a look at it maybe in a future video, but I think a lot of this stuff hasn't... I think Drawer 4 hasn't been added yet. I have no idea what Penguin Bara mode is. I've never seen any kind of code you have to enter or anything like that, but this really is something special. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. I love you guys very much. Please stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.